Hi, I'm Carmen, the founder of Community Coach, and hope you're well. I wanted to talk about an event that I attended yesterday, and it was a really, really cool event, so why not share about it? It was an introductions event, so it was an event purely focused on community members getting to know other community members by introducing themselves. And we had 60 people attend this event. I did not host the event, I was just a mere participant. But that's the great thing about being a community manager, is that you can attend other events and see what other people are doing, see if there's any tips and tricks that you can pick up. So I do highly recommend doing that. I still do it to this day, even with all my experience. So one of the really nice aspects of this event was they actually gave us breakfast. So it was a breakfast meet and greet, and they completely changed the vibe in the room to begin with by sending every single participant breakfast from a local cafe. So, I mean, obviously if you go to a real event, you may be served breakfast, you may have, coffee, pastries, etc. So they're trying to replicate that in a virtual world. So my doorbell rang before the event started, and I just think that's a really, really nice touch. If you have budget that you would normally spend on events in real life, consider allocating that budget not just to platform, and getting everything set up from a conference or event perspective, but also think about these little ways that you can change the way that participants feel about this event to begin with. So breakfast was served. They gave coffee, French toast, and hash browns, and so that was actually really fun for me to set up before the event started. And I noticed that when the event did start, a lot of the participants are already in such a great mood, because who doesn't love breakfast being delivered to your door? We were all showing off what we had been delivered. There are actually some people from different countries, and this is what makes it even more amazing, is there is some logistics involved behind the scenes to get breakfast delivered to all the participants. But it meant that we could also show the different breakfasts that we had received. So there were some participants in Australia that received, some really cool breakfast items that the rest of us hadn't seen, and we received something different. So that was already a fun way to kick things off. Now, when it comes to the actual event itself, they completely broke the mold of the hosts. They didn't follow typical community manager rules when it comes to, a Zoom event with many participants joining. So we had about 60 people in the event, and the Zoom looked a little bit like my background, where you could see a ton of people. Everybody knew to mute. I mean, they're all adults in this event. So it was pretty easy in general. There wasn't any crazy people shouting, forgetting to put themselves on mute. And there were two co-hosts that were sort of leading the session to begin with, just welcoming people in. But it was really casual and really authentic. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that sometimes events are very strict and they're very stiff. And I think that when you're talking about replicating what a real life event feels like, there's usually this time at the start where it is more casual, and it is just about people rocking up and grabbing that pastry and coffee, or a drink, and chatting. So I thought they did a really good job by not having it feel so strict, and people were told that they must be on mute and that the session will start in 5 minutes. It wasn't like that. It was very much the host sort of reaching out to some of the participants saying, hey, Joe, it's great to see you here. How are things? The rest of us were just very happy to listen in, to be honest. So that was different for me. And then the introductions started, where the hosts actually said, right, we're ready for introductions. We're going to go round. There's 60 of us, which, I think a lot of community managers would be thinking, oh my gosh. I mean, I was thinking this, how are we going to get through 60 people with introductions and not get bored, or, we're going to waste our entire time just going through introductions. But first up, that was the point of this event, which I think is something to note, that, a lot of the times we skip through introductions at the beginning of an event. We may only introduce 2 or 3 people that are speaking. And yeah, it's just really, really important to actually think through, are introductions important enough, and do they warrant an event itself? And these hosts had considered that it was important enough. And because of that, we already didn't feel like this is a waste of time, because we had completely focused on the event being all about introductions and getting to know each other. There were 60 people in the room that wanted to hear these introductions. So because of that, what was also really great was the hosts hadn't given us any guidelines for the introductions. Now, what that means is, typically when you're going through introductions, community managers will be thinking and scrambling beforehand as to, like, okay, how can I give some guidance and some structure and some time limits, and to get through everybody. And you may give people 3 guiding questions, like, first, tell us where you're from. Second, they might answer a question about where are you in the program, or tell us an interesting fact about yourself, etc. You're giving them generally some guidance, and then you're asking everybody to go through this formula when they're introducing themselves. This did not happen at the event yesterday. Instead, they gave 0 guidance, which, I mean, at first I was like, oh, okay, we're just diving straight into this as adults, okay. I normally would not advise that as a community manager. Usually people need to be guided. Otherwise, you'll find that, like, some people will go off the tracks. They may, like, talk about, something from their past 20 years ago that doesn't matter. I don't know, usually I think community managers are trying to keep things contained and, encourage people to share in a way that they also feel comfortable sharing. That didn't happen in this event. However, it was actually super positive, because people didn't have the guidelines. It meant that everybody's sharing was even more authentic. It was like, all right, you're just telling me to introduce myself, here I go. And the participants didn't go through, typical, hi, I'm Carmen, I'm from Sydney, and yeah, I'm just, like, really happy to be here. It was really interesting. The host had said, look, introduce yourself, and if there's anything you're working on, or if you haven't asked, it's a really good opportunity now. It was almost like they were saying, hey, you have the stage, say what you want to say, and share, some really great stuff that's going on in your life, but we're going to give you the stage to do that and to decide what you want to share, etc. That meant that people were sharing about incredible projects that they were working on, and they were doing it in their way. It was, some people were like, oh, I'm just going to share a link to, this event that I'm hosting. Feel free to check it out. I'm really excited because of X. And it was authentic. It was like what people were sharing about themselves, and some people were sharing about, they couldn't wait to travel, and that was on their mind. And they wanted to get that out to the group. And, some people were then connecting because they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to Greece. And other people really wanted to go to Greece. And you found that connections in the chat were happening because of that. And I just thought, as a community manager, that was really, really great to see. So I think that's something that, as a community manager, we may need to take a step back and realize that, yes, there should be some sense of, I guess, guidance when it comes to, everybody should mute, or everybody, here is what we're planning to do today, etc., giving them some structure. But at the same time, giving too much structure can actually detract from authentic conversations and authentic connections happening. So keep that in mind. That was something that really resonated with me yesterday when I was just seeing this happen live at the event. I will note that some people, when they were doing the introductions, they felt a little uncomfortable. And I know that not everybody is comfortable being on camera. I know that not everybody is an extrovert who loves to talk and loves to, have the stage. And I think that's something that as hosts and community managers, we need to be thinking about this. There are different personalities in the room, and perhaps it's more about giving people the option, if they don't want to introduce themselves like this, like on stage right now on Zoom with a camera on. It can be really nerve-wracking for some people. Maybe they can share via a picture, or they can share a website link, and maybe they decide that they don't want their video on per se, but they could just say, hey, I'm Carmen without the video. Check out my portfolio. This is what I'm working on. Really great to meet you all here. And it just feels a little less daunting for them to say that versus, oh my gosh, I have to now present. So that's just something to keep in mind, because you want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and not freaked out. Obviously, the host has already set the stage by saying this is an event about introductions. So the people that were there obviously wanted to get connected and learn more about each other. But I think there is some experimentation that could be done when it comes to the way that people can share about themselves. So consider that. They may even want to play a video, share their screen and play a video of what they're working on, and their camera's off, and they just feel more comfortable that way. I definitely know that some gamers, etc. I've worked with many different communities and industries, and I know that there's just sometimes people just don't want camera on, and that is totally okay. Anyway, I hope I hope this has helped. Anyway, I just really wanted to share about this event because there was so much that I learned from it, and I know that there is constantly this debate that people miss real events in person, and there are ways that you can look at a virtual event and think, how do we change the game on this? How do we replicate some of those things that happen in real life, like getting the free breakfast, like having those authentic moments of connection, that don't feel like, oh God, this is another Zoom call and I have to sit here with good lighting and make sure my mic works and make sure my camera's on and stare at a whole bunch of other people that are also in the same situation. There are ways to make it feel a little bit more like you're just a whole bunch of people in a room and you want to get to know each other. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you felt like this is interesting. I go to a ton of events. I am also part of many communities and I never stop learning. So I just want to share all my insights and wisdom and things that I pick up over time with you. And thanks so much for watching. Appreciate that. Bye.